Mame fa say ma PENDREAM TV. PENDREAM TV there osia dem yopo.
The issue growing cities in West Africa. Over the years, we've had perennial water challenge. Your government cancelled for the Tamale Water Project in 2020, same for Yendi and Savannah region. Your Excellency, as President of the Republic, what will be your solution to address this perennial water challenge? And what is the update on the Tamale Water Project? Thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellency. If you can take the questions and give the answers. But please let me quickly add this. As we report, kindly let's report fairly. If you are going to report that the Vice President said, if he does everything now, what would he do when he becomes president? Please add the laughing emoji and then complete the statement, because that's exactly what he said. TV3, kindly correct the reportage on Facebook. Thank you. Your Excellency.
Thank you very much. I think the question started with the seeds. I think the seed industry appears to be collapsing, and we need to revamp the local seed industry. I couldn't really agree more with the whole premise of that. If that is the case, we definitely will need to revamp the local seed industry, because without the seeds, we have a real problem in terms of cultivation of various crops. So we'll have to look at that. The question, what failures that you think in this government that you would see to correct? I was thinking a little bit about that. I don't know if I mean, for one, I think that I wish we had built in, for example, we had started the gold purchase program much earlier. If we had started it in our first term of office, for example, the buffer in terms of gold reserves would have been much bigger. As I said, a few years ago, we had 8.7 tons of gold, and I think so far we are almost they've bought close to about 72 tons or so. So it's very, I mean, something that I wish, when I sit back and look and I say, wow, I wish we had been able to buy a bit more and start gold for oil and gold for reserves much earlier. But as I said, the crisis is what really made us to get into these policies. Of course, I also wish that we had, even though we built more school infrastructure than any government, I believe that we've still had challenges with the senior high school in terms of infrastructure. And I wish we had completed a bit more in terms of the accommodation, dining hall, and so on. But this is one of the reasons why I want us to move a lot of the government expenditure away from government to the private sector. This is a major policy that we are coming up with, that we want to engage the private sector in a lot of expenditure that government normally will put on the budget. And a lot of infrastructure is part of what government puts on the budget. And places like roads, and you tend to see a lot of uncompleted buildings. But if you go to places like Legon or Tech, most of the accommodation, the hostels, is provided by the private sector. And all we do is rent it and pay. And I believe that we can have that model where the private sector is engaged to build a lot of infrastructure, and will pay them rent or lease it or whatever over time. So I believe that will give a lot of fiscal space, but also allow us to complete all of these buildings and so on. But this is where I want to take Ghana in the next session, that we should move more towards the private sector provision of a lot of this, and that will really bring down the fiscal burden on government in providing some of these. The Cape Coast Airport, what is the overriding consideration? Well, I think that if you look at tourism, it's got to be one of the big considerations for Cape Coast. And that could provide us, of course, some people say, well, you are also expanding the road. That is fine, but some people want to fly directly to Cape Coast. I think they will have that opportunity to do so. Parents, it's an educational hub and so on. From Tamale can come straight to Cape Coast and other things. So I think that, you know, there is a rationale, and we should give Cape Coast. It's the feasibility study is suggesting that the location will really be between Cape Coast and Takoradi because of land space issues. But I think there's justification for that. Inner Ring Road for Kumasi, Santasi, and Hojo, and airport interchanges. NAPO, I'll leave you to handle that portfolio. And it will be your responsibility to make sure. So I'll tell the Kumasi people to hold you if it's not done. I think that the issue that has been raised, I think, I don't know if it was Andy or Larry who raised it, that corruption, that we've not talked about corruption in the manifesto. In fact, we have, and I did make the point when I delivered my speech at the manifesto launch, that, you know, for me, the way we have looked at fighting corruption, you know, we're looking at, as I said during the manifesto launch, you know, we have killed people for corruption, we've jailed people, we've passed several laws, you know. In fact, since we have been in office, you know, we have passed many laws. We've passed the Right to Information Act, that basically brings more transparency. The Witness Protection Act we've passed. The Criminal Offense Amendment Act 2020 was also passed. The Anti-Money Laundering Act 2020. They also increased budgetary allocations to the Audit Service, to SHRAJ, NCCE. We also set up the Office of the Special Prosecutor. So all of these things are, you know, policies that we've implemented. But I make the point that when it comes to corruption, I believe that we should stop corruption ex ante, that is before it happens, rather than deal with it ex post, after it happens. That we should look at, and this is why I believe that digitalization holds the key to dealing with corruption. And why do I say so? When I look at the impact of the Ghana card on the public sector payroll, it gives me a lot of confidence that we are on the right path. PENDREAM TV. Now, so far so good. Say open online portal le Ghana. Nipa share, nipa follow, nipa comment here. To my best of knowledge, without any biases, PENDREAM TV.